so time box it quite diligently, and I will deal with items that as they arise, if they exceed the time period assigned time. All right, now I will share my screen.
Oh, Stephen, can I just check who's taking minutes?
Oh yes, sorry.
I am.
Well,
I am.
yep.
Thanks, Dushi.
Yeah, I'm just getting into a bit more of the administrative side of things as well. Okay, right. I'm sharing my screen, which you should be able to see the agenda on the screen. So by way of the order of business, so I'm Stephen, I'm chairing today's session, and Dushi has kindly agreed to take meeting notes. So with that sort of sorted, on the screen, what you see is the meeting agenda, and I will put a hang on, I'll put a link to the chat. Where can I find? Okay, chat. All right, here is a link to the meeting minutes. We all can peruse it at your own sort of desktops at your own leisure. But this is this conference is behaving a bit weird. So this is the agenda item sort of for today. So does anyone has any objections to the agenda items? Any suggestions for change, reordering? All right. If not, then I will accept the draft agenda as is, and we'll progress with the agenda items. So the first order of business is the approval of the meetings of the minutes of the last meeting. I
popped the link to those in the chat.
Yep, thank you. Hang on. Where is that? Yeah, okay. So that's the meeting minutes. So we have circulated it sort of a week or so ago. So and it's in the chat as well. So that hopefully, given that we have sort of posted it a while ago, members do have a chance to read the agenda, the draft meeting minutes, and the questions to the members. Do you have any changes that you want to be made before we entertain the motions to accept the meeting minutes as the official record? All right, we haven't any expression of requests to edit or change the draft meeting minutes as you have seen on the screen, and also through the links that you have been given in the chat. So I would, before we get into the voting business, CHIR folks, did you want to designate who will be your voting members?
How many do we have on the line? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We
yeah,
do
all
have,
right.
yeah.
So in this case, I think we might change them depending on the item. But for now, let's say Michael Wilson, and since Steve won't be available for the entire, I'll be the second voting member. So we'll say Michael Wilson and Daniel Tavares-Rickson.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes of the last meeting as the official record.
I'm happy to motion we accept these minutes.
Thank you, Michael Wilson. Any seconder?
Brett here, I'll second.
Thank you, Brett. All right. So, any further discussions? Any comments? All right, if not, then can we launch the vote, please? Thank you. Brett, are you launching the vote?
I'm on it.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, proof of minutes. There we go.
All right, so we have the vote on the screen. How many do we have? We have 11, including me.
I am a +1 for affirmative.
Okay, so, all right.
And I'm a +1 for affirmative as well.
Okay, so we have 5 affirmative, 2 abstain. All right, I think. All right, yep. Okay, 5 affirmative, 3 abstains. Okay, I think that motion carries. Thank you. All right, the second agenda item will be updates. We have 10 minutes for that. The first item will be action related to AU-based R6. Daniel, is that you?
I don't know which one of us it is. Well, I'm not really sure there's too much to update. I think we're in the throes of it. I think we can probably move on. I don't think there's anything else beyond. There's a lot of things that we're trying to work through.
Okay, sounds good. Then the next item of update will be on the Australian public hospital coverage type e-vote result.
Yeah, if you just want to quick click on that,
Okay.
I administrated that one. So that was put out to vote, had a 7-day open period. That vote is now closed. It's affirmative. There were 10 voters, no negative, no absent, no refer to telecon. So that has passed. And the change has been applied in AU base.
Right, thank you. So that closes that item. All right. Okay. All right. Agenda item number 3, pre-adoptions of a couple of items with some technical limitations that we want to bring to the attentions of the members here. So, Daniel?
I'll take that one, Stephen.
Oh, you take that one.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So just these were tickets that were resolved or ready to apply pre-adoption of R5 elements. Through investigation, the current publishing and validation tooling situation is not complete. So whilst it's a valid approach, we don't really have entire support. So this is basically just to cover off that the resolutions there that were made for those tickets can't be fully implemented with inclusion in the profiles for those R5 pre-adoptions. So we are just, the facilitators have said we can't do that, and we will be just applying the specification, the specific profile guidance instead, and there's still examples of use and the guidance attached to that. So this is more of a technical problem with fully implementing the resolution. Rika.
Thanks, Brett. I'm just wondering, so is the long-term plan to work towards adding them into the profiles? I'm conscious that like lightweight guidance won't be inherited by downstream profiles. And I mean, obviously there are technical limitations that you've described anyway. So I'm just wondering, is the plan there to add them to profiles eventually? And then just wondering as well, downstream profiles, because they won't inherit from guidance that's in the intro or notes, should we add a comment into the element description for the things that these are designed to extend, just so that downstream profiles have a bit of a pointer that says, oh, pre-adoption is supported, here's some guidance, da da da.
Yeah, we certainly have the guidance, like the guidance there, explicitly about how to do it and reference material, and examples. Yeah, so yeah, I'm happy with the the suggestion to add it to the comment, I think is a good one. And so the comment part of the element definition. So yeah, we'll can look at that maybe. And I think, yeah, I guess the longer term plan is, what do we do with these tickets as they are? Do
I think we
we
should have a,
close them
I don't know
or
if we,
keep them open? Yeah.
well, no, I think we do. I think when the tooling is fully implemented, we come back and take a look at what the implications are for AU base and for downstream IGs to then determine if we bring them into the profiles, or if there are reasons that might not be appropriate now that the tooling ecosystem has been built out. But I think we have to wait till then, and then
Okay.
put it on the agenda.
So come back again.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I
let's
think-
flag it in these tickets. Yeah.
Yeah, I
and
think that's a reasonable
them, yeah.
approach. So I was just thinking about how do we keep this on a backlog? So do we keep it alive as a Jira ticket, or a backlog list somewhere?
We can create a deferred one with
New
a
ticket?
precondition
Yeah.
to reopen if
Yeah.
the tooling
Yeah.
stuff is done. Now let's look at
Yeah,
it.
that's a good plan.
Or we can keep it alive as one of those actions we kick forward in every fortnight and go, is it done yet? Can we talk about it?
I'm happy to raise a ticket because that puts it on the list.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think putting it on the agenda every week to revisit it is every fortnight is okay, but I think it's becoming sometimes desensitizing. So I think locking a Jira ticket and keep the ticket alive will be something that's good.
We'll come back to it. Yeah.
And then do we have timelines on the tooling, or like indicative timelines? I know that there's a lot of dependencies there.
No, no, it's the short answer. It's definitely a hot topic
Yeah.
at international, and there are some of the bigger and badder specs, like SDC, the SDC spec for questionnaires is suffering quite badly at the moment, because they want to pre-adopt and they don't have a way to achieve it. So yeah, I think that will get resolved, but I have no clear timeline when that would be, other than not before ballot is my bet. So it's yeah.
Definitely not
But,
on the ballot. Okay.
Exactly. But you know, depending on what happens, I mean, we might look at it in reconciliation, I guess, as well. Depending on the timelines. So
All right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
So
cool.
yeah.
So just with that suggestion with the comment, adding stuff to the comment, people, I guess, yeah, so I guess the question is just resolving that additional word, those additional words in the comment. We do have a draft. I'm particularly looking at the medication strength stuff because we did want to look at FMM1 for that. So it's more just how we proceed.
I think we put the content in the comment, and then we can send out an e-vote for FMM1 review when that's included, to make sure people are then comfortable.
Cool, let's do that.
Just to confirm, Danielle, you're meaning the content in the comment in addition to the guidance up the top?
Yes, because as you pointed out, the guidance doesn't travel with the structure, but if you put that how to use this element in the comment field, which is what the comment field is for, then it does travel with the structure.
Yeah, perfect. I just wanted to confirm that it was both places, not moving to.
Yes, both places. Although it doesn't impact the medication strength extension. It would be a change in the AU-based medication. That's what I'm expecting, because that's where we're saying this is okay, good.
Yeah, same page.
Yeah, that's good. So we'll just say, okay, the action is there to add suitable comments into the medication ingredient.
Yeah.
strength? No,
Uh,
ingredient element.
it would be the ingredient
Ingredient
element.
element. Yeah, exactly. And
Just
then
to-
we'll talk about evote. Yep. Go
I
on.
was just going to say to confirm, because you've merged my PR into a different branch.
Yeah.
Is the action on yourself or myself?
Let's
The
take it on
action's
me.
on
Take
Brett.
it on me. Yeah, take it on me. We'll work it out. Cool.
Perfect.
All
Thank
right,
you.
and then that'll come back as an e-vote to so we'll just I guess we'll say so we've approved, have we approved inclusion with that change?
Mhm.
And then so we can merge it at that point into the CI build, and then we can look at FMM questions as an e-vote.
Well, I know we're taking a bit of time here, but since this doesn't actually affect the medication extension, that could be merged in and still looked up from AFMM1
Yes.
review, noting the action to update the comment
point.
field.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. That's great.
All right, I'll take that, unless there are any objections.
All right, we're actually doing well with timing. So any other thoughts, comments? All right, if not, then we have a couple of action items that I do see will document with regarding to this, and we will leave this agenda item to move to the next one. AUE requesting AFMM1 review. Do you want me to show any of those tickets?
I'm happy to walk through it.
Okay, do you want to share?
Yeah, I'll share.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
I've got to send a request. I think you have to approve the request.
Yeah, you have been given.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Coming up, yes.
Okay. So the eRequesting TDG conducted an AFMM review in the last meeting on 3rd July. So out of that meeting, we have 2 jurors here. So I'm just going to walk through those jurors quickly. So the first one here is 51405. So this was a proposal to take all our artifacts from draft 0 to AFMM1 with all the list here. So we did a review of the QA report and a review against the AFMM1 criteria. So out of this, this was a summary of all the warnings that we had. The TDG agreed to endorse all of these to AFMM1 that had no errors or that were no errors or warnings, or had warnings that had already been approved by the FHIR Work Group, which included the one that we went through in our last meeting in the FHIR Work Group, which was the pin canonicals one. So out of that, all of these items, those were the only ones that had warnings on them. There was one that we excluded from this ticket. You'll see here in the resolution that we agreed to accept all the eRequesting artifacts that have no warnings and those that have warnings that have been accepted by the FHIR Work Group. And this excludes the eRequesting pathology request to be subject of another vote. So that's in the other ticket. One thing of other note we had when we went through this process, it was brought up that we should probably note the version of the publisher that was used at this point in time, noting that the warnings and the like change over time with different versions of the publisher. So we just put in there for the reference that the current version of the publisher was 2.0.8. And this motion was passed to by the eRequesting TDG to accept all those artifacts. And then we had a separate vote on 51431, which was only on pathology request. This had 2 warnings on it. One of them was the pin canonicals, so we've already addressed that one via work group. The second warning was a warning about the experimental nature of our binding on service request code. So this is binding to the RCPA SPIA reference set. And that's actually been published on NCTS with a experimental flag. So the warning here was saying that the ref set is experimental, but the structure is not labeled as experimental. So we had no intent of marking our profile as experimental. We have actually raised a change request at NCS tooling to suggest removing the experimental flag from that value set. So the eRequesting TDG accepted that warning. Yeah, we don't see any issue with that. So this motion was accepted to accept the two warnings on the eRequesting pathology request and move the profile to AFMM 1. Again, we noted the version of the publisher there. So both of those jurors have been endorsed by the eRequesting TDG, and we're looking for FHIR Work Group endorsement as well. But I'll take any questions on any of that. Anyone has any?
All right, anyone?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, if there are no questions, I'd like to motion that the FHIR Work Group accepts all of the artifacts.
Michael, point of order, we have two tickets. Should we be doing them one by one?
I would like to combine them. I think
Okay.
they were just done separately. I mean, if there's no questions, if there's questions on any of them, I'm happy to break them up. But if there's no questions, I think I would like to combine them into one vote to accept all of these artifacts.
So our members at today's meeting are comfortable with combining the two. It's one single vote. All right, I haven't heard any dissent, so let's roll with it.
Okay.
Your motion?
So I'd like to motion that we accept all the eRequesting artifacts that were endorsed by the eRequesting TDG and these two jurors to AFMM 1.
All right, thank you, Michael. Anyone who wants to second that? Preferably someone outside Cyril.
Brett here, I can second that.
Okay, thank you, Brett. All right, now we have a motion on the table. We have second. Any other discussions or questions on the motions? All right, hearing none, let's launch the vote. Thank you, Brett. All right, voting underway. All right, we have 4 in favor on the screen, plus Brett, plus Daniel, so it will be 6, and we have 3 abstain. Motion carried. Thank you.
I'm happy to carry on to the next one too.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So I think for our time boxing, we didn't have a time box on the second one, so I think it would include in our 15 minutes total.
Yeah, we do. We are running a bit ahead of time, so we can be a bit more relaxed about it.
Although I'm well aware there's a lot in this meeting, so
yeah,
keep it as short as possible. So this is another eRequesting proposal about a supporting info search parameter under JIRA 51437. We'll actually put it in the chat. Everyone's got it. So a supporting info search parameter was introduced into the AU eRequesting IG via 51005 to enable and include searches on service requests supporting info. So under supporting info in eRequesting, we have pregnancy status as well as clinical context. So being able to include searches and pull those resources in was seen as valuable in eRequesting. Although it was introduced in the eRequesting use case to support the supporting info search parameter may have general applicability across any context where service request supporting info is used. Therefore, to promote reuse, consistency, and alignment across FHIR implementation guides, the AU eRequesting TDG is requesting the FHIR Work Group consider supporting info search parameter for inclusion in AU base. And so the TDG actually held a vote on this about referring it to the FHIR Work Group, and that is under 51251. So this is where we had a discussion about referring it to the FHIR Work Group for inclusion in AU base, and that motion was accepted by the eRequesting TDG. So the eRequesting TDG believes it's a good idea to move it to AU base. Noting that search parameter is also currently part of our variation statement, stating that we've got a search parameter that isn't included in AU base or AU core. So this JIRA is to bring that to the FHIR Work Group for inclusion in AU base. I'd also note that we have created a branch with this proposed change in it for AU base. I'll put that in the chat. This is to help streamline the inclusion of this into AU base. So there is a branch there that's available if we accept this to review and get it in shortly for this release cycle.
Well, both decisions would have to be part of it, I think, because we'd need to review the specific content. I mean, in principle, I think that where there's a native FHIR element, which this is, all the search parameters that we define for use in Australia should be in AU base. We don't want there to be different definitions of a native FHIR element search parameter, basically. It'd be great if FHIR did it, which they've not. So I think the next best place is AU base. So in principle, fully agree. And I think we should then review the specifics and agree on like that definition, because I think that's also what's being proposed is this definition.
Yeah, so that's
do you
I don't
have
know whether
a HTML rendering of this? I can read it. I don't know if everyone else on the line can.
Yeah, it's a good question. I didn't check whether we've got a build for this, but there is a build. Oh no, so this is on Jamie's. So no, sorry, I don't have the HTML. I didn't think of that. So I don't want to waste too much time in this meeting. So I'm open to ideas about whether we want to review this here in this format or we do it by another means.
Can I double check then with Dushi, who I know who has reviewed, like knowing this was on the agenda, Dushi and I both reviewed the normative aspects of this search parameter to determine whether or not that was like appropriate at a AU base level. Dushi, can you just summarize briefly the results of that review for the attendees?
Yeah, we both reviewed it, as you said. And I think all the normative parts are correct. I've looked at core FHIR search parameters and I looked at the current build just to check against conventions they're using. So later, people don't have to change their search strings if core FHIR adds this search parameter. And it does seem to match the core FHIR search parameters conventions. Yeah, I think it's consistent with other profiles. It seems to be technically correct, so aligns with conventions. Yeah, I don't know what else. I think that summarizes it pretty much though.
Yeah, we reviewed the base, so which resource it's against is this is particular to service request because the ID of this element is only in service request. So it's not going to be a generic parameter there. The type is reference because that is where that target goes. The expression is correct for what is being searched. Multiple and multiple or is set as may, which is the default setting. The code, that's really the only thing that we could be preferential about is what do you want to put in a search string. I don't think there's any issue with having the word supporting -info
And sorry,
yeah.
Danielle, to jump in, that seems to be the way the core file does it as well, because there's a number of the other elements where the element name is no space, no dashes, but in the search parameter, the code has a dash. So they've got instantiates canonical with a dash, and yeah. Was that too confusing?
It is. That's what I thought.
No, I
So
agree. I agree. I mean, that's the common practice for the FHIR spec. So I think
So it
that
matches the FHIR
makes sense.
conventions for parameters for elements, and it matches the correct normative expression for searching that element. So yeah, no, I'm fine with it after reviewing it.
All right. So in summary, we don't see any technical reason. Technical problems. We don't see any convention problems. So it's all good to go, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. All
So
right.
actions. So actions are what? Create a PR?
I don't think we need to action that kind of stuff. Like, not everything comes with a PR. We just decide on if we're going to vote. And of course, the person submitting it does a PR. I don't think we bother to action every PR.
That's right. I'm just going to make sure someone's going to do it.
So my question is that do we need to vote on that?
No.
I think we need to vote on this,
Yeah.
yes, but not
Oh,
on
the inclusion.
Yeah.
Inclusion at draft 0. Yep.
Yep. All right. With that settled, I am happy to entertain a motion.
Yep, I would like to motion that we add the supporting info search parameter for service request into AU base.
Thank you. Seconder, please.
I'm happy to second, Marika.
Thank you, Marika. All right. Any other questions or comments or discussions? All right. We are doing well in terms of time, much to my surprise. All right. Okay. Brett, please launch a vote for us. Thank you. All right. Vote underway. All right, it looks like that it is stabling. So we have 3 abstains, 4 in the e-vote plus 2, I assume. Daniel and Brett, correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So we have 6 in favor, 3 abstain. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's it for me now. The next one's, not me.
Yep.
I'll stop
Next
sharing.
one is the AU-based FM1. So Daniel, you want to take this one?
I think it was me again.
Oh, it's you again. All right.
That's my
do you want to share? Or do you want to share? Okay, I'll let you share. All right.
I don't think it's built though.
It's not built yet. So
No, build.fire.org. So based on the previous agreement, we've merged that content, and that's what we would show. So there's one that isn't built yet.
yeah, exactly.
Do we either agree
Look at the
on
others.
the other aspects,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
see
yeah.
if that one is built in the time at which we are happy with those? Okay.
Yeah, we might push it to the end of the meeting. Yeah, that's good. I'll share what we can see so far. So, screen. Right, so we're looking at this FMM1 ticket. So this is looking at these particular new artifacts and looking at putting them up from draft to FMM1. So we have the 4 artifacts there. So we'll go through, and mainly these have all been discussed and approved for inclusion, and so we now need to just look at the errors and warnings aspect of each of these to approve that they are suitable for inclusion. So I might just take these one at a time, and we are waiting on a build for the medication strength. Oh, the value set too, Danielle. That's building as well.
I think it's built. I can double check that.
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
not a
I know the first two are.
last minute thing.
I
Okay.
think that
Just double
one's
check.
built. with
That one's built.
changes.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's in.
Cool.
It's in.
Oh, where's that one? That's probably the latest one. There we go. So
Yes, so it's built now. We can look at all of them.
yeah, excellent. Just there you go.
Really appreciate all the red. Yeah.
So I'll start by looking at patient internal identifier. So we have our definition here, and we've got our report out of that one. We're only getting the draft status report, which makes sense because we haven't approved it to FMM1 yet, and that is the only error we have for that one. So
Amendment, not an error. That's information.
oh, information only. Yeah. It is expected as well anyway. So it's that we will be changing that on approval. The time zone extension. So this is the profile of the international time zone. Again, no errors, and that's what we expect to see. The coverage type. Do you know what the URL is for that, Daniel?
Starts with value set, these ones. So it's going to be at the bottom of that list because all our value sets do. It's a
coverage type extended.
That's the one.
Okay, so we do have a warning on this one, which is one of our kind of known warnings, which is we're including the NCTS value set profile reference. So this is essentially incorporating it. This was a decision we made to include that. So it's a known behavior, and you'll see all the value sets we have defined do that anyway. So other than that, I think that is clean. That's good. And then medication strength.
Starts with structure definition. There it is.
Oh, you saw it?
I did. Keep
Keep
going down.
There we go, medication strength. Again, no errors on this one, and draft as expected. And so basically we have no errors to report. But we do have one warning, which is expected on the value set. So having gone through that, I would like to move that we accept taking these artifacts from draft 0 to AFMM1 for inclusion in the ballot.
All right. Anyone who want to second that?
I'll second Marika.
Thank you, Marika. All right. Any questions, further discussions or comments? All right. Hearing none, let's go to the vote.
Okay. Yep.
All right. All right, the vote seems to have stable. We have 4 affirmative, 2 abstain. With the 4, we add 2 more, which I would assume to be Daniel and also Brett. So we have 6 affirmative and 2 abstain. Motion carried. All right, thank you. All right, now let's go to the next agenda item, which agenda item number 7, eRequesting 3 priority JIRA ticket for review. Daniel, as you're taking on this one, do you want to share screen or do you want me to share screen?
No, it's not going to be me because this is eRequesting.
Oh, sorry,
I
yeah,
think it might
eRequesting.
be Michael Osborne,
Yep.
maybe.
Michael Osborne?
Yeah, I can share screen if you like.
Sure, yeah.
I don't have the agenda up, so I don't know which ticket it was that we're looking at
Okay, I will
first.
show. I'll put the tickets onto the chat. All right, the first one.
Which is the first one? Sorry, I'm just having trouble. Oh, there's the chat there. Gotcha.
Yeah, in the chat.
All right,
Yeah.
hold on.
First one's communication request reason.
Okay.
All right, I have now the 3 Jira ticket links in the chat.
Okay. So this one has come because we have a communication request profile in eRequesting. I'll show you the value set. Actually, I hadn't prepared to show this one, but I'll just duplicate this. This is just my local build. Communication request reason. Okay. So these ones are flagging communication requests.
Which screen are you sharing, Michael? I don't see the value set.
Can't see it?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. All right, hold on. I'll drop this one down. Yeah, there we go. It's a bit of a smaller screen, but
all good.
we'll see how we go. Yeah, okay. So, Michael, did you want to talk to this one? Michael Wilson?
Sure. So we're using the communication request reason to distinguish between the types of communication requests that we have in eRequesting. So we have an urgent communication request, patient communication request, and the other one was the
Copy to.
copy to. So this code system supports those by coding each of our communication requests to the type that they are. So yeah, see that fixed value copy to on our copy to communication request. And then we have urgent and patient on the other ones. So yeah, this code system's used by our value set for coding these communication requests. Do you want to jump back to the code system?
This one, yeah.
That's it. So there's our definitions down the bottom of urgent, patient, and copy to for use with those communication requests. So this code system is currently in eRequesting, but this proposal is to move the code systems to AU base. Maintain the value sets in eRequesting, but the code system's going to AU base.
So there were some discussions on these value sets. Daniel or Brett, do you want to put in some thoughts or to open it up for discussion at the moment before you put in your thoughts?
Sorry, I walked away slightly. Let me just put some things down. Right, okay. So I think I'm in favor of inclusion of communication request reason in AU base. I'm in favor of it for a whole number of reasons that I think Ruben will recognize about harmonization of terminology and where we go when communication request is not going to just be used by eRequesting. I know we haven't done a lot of use of it yet, but it's going to be coming. And I think a lot of the concepts that eRequesting is trying to exchange In fact, all of them are quite relevant to other contexts. And even if they weren't, I think with other contexts in play, I'm concerned about needing to have implementers implement multiple code systems for communication request reason. And that being managed by lots of different specs. So I think we want to harmonize. We want to bring this in. I think it's a starter set, and then we go from there. AU base is our current way to do that. We might eventually migrate in Australia to some kind of THO thing, but this is our vehicle for doing it. So in principle, I love the fact that eRequesting has brought these three to us to have a look at. In terms of the specific concepts, I think the specific concepts are totally fine. I've got no comment on whether or not they're appropriate for eRequesting. They look like a reasonable kind of thing for communication request. I have some concerns about the definition of the concepts in particular. I think I'll just list an example of it, which we'll just use the first one on urgent. And that this is the code urgent has then been said, no, this is about urgent results. And I think there's other things that you could be saying urgent about. So I think that the code is this nice generic concept, but the display and the definition are really narrowing down and qualifying that. And I think we need to be careful about this starter set, that we are setting something in place that can be added to and will either be able to be used, some of those codes, in the other contexts, because their thing might be urgent, or where we determine we really need a specific code, that the code itself is specific. So it's about, I guess, the conceptual clarity of what's being defined and making that robust enough to be used for eRequesting and appropriate, but also be added to. So that's what I see about this one.
So Daniel, that comment would apply to the last one, which the definition says a request for result as well, isn't it?
Yes, if copy to is where we're saying add an extra person for this communication, or for the target of the communication request, then I don't really see that has to be just for results. I think that could be reused in contexts. So either, I think if there's a need, and I'm not so sure there really is in the code, because there are other elements in communication request to say what the target is. But if there is a need to say the reason for this request is specifically about copy to and about copy to results and not anything else, then I think that the code and the display should show that.
Brett, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just going to agree with Danielle, but I think, yeah, just the two generic things I'm thinking of is avoiding the category of communication. So like the fact that it's about results is really part of the communication request itself. And so it's not the reason as such, it's what the communication is about. So to me, like, the reason the communication request exists is because it's urgent, and we should avoid that. And I think and the language in the patient request also includes, that doesn't mention the results, but it does mention from a service provider, which is a specific source of the communication, and I'd prefer that was made generic as well, to be a generic, communication request, communication source. So just some language like that. So it's not really changing, hopefully, the meaning of the terms, but it's really just making them generically usable for other types of communication.
Well, if you change the definition, it actually does change the meaning of the terms somewhat. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, it's making them more generalized.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So like I think that's the decision really. If you're going to be specific, you should make it completely specific. And if it's and if I'd prefer we went the other way, which was to make them generally reapplicable.
Okay.
So if I wanted to do the same thing for an e-referral or another type of communication request, I could use these terms. Would be
Okay.
my idea. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to propose a two sort of a step approach. First, I would like to ask the two Michaels, are you both acceptable to or agreeable to the changes of the definitions and also one of the displays name to be a bit more generic? And if you are, then we'll go into the second step, which will sort of looking at how do we tweak the definitions and also the display names to meet that requirement. So before we go into the next step, so the first step first, so the two Michaels, what are your thoughts?
I agree with the concept about adjusting them here to be in AU base and more applicable. I think we've got a process issue though. These were defined in eRequesting and approved by the eRequesting TDG as is. So this is the eRequesting endorsed code system. So they've been specifically created and worded accordingly to eRequesting requirements. Now there's a push here that the code systems shouldn't live in eRequesting and they should be more applicable more broadly, and I completely agree with those sort of concepts. But if we were to make changes to these now and put them in AU base, we would then have to go back to the eRequesting TDG and say, can we continue to use these codes in their changed form? And the eRequesting TDG may say, no, we need it to be more specific. We need it to be this, and we're going to have this sort of cyclic process where we've got to go round and round to determine the appropriateness of these codes and definitions.
Yes and no. We can. I mean, if the eRequesting TDG push back, then there is actually a way out. It's not going into a kind of tailspin type of cycle. So there is an option of making these codes and the display name specific to eRequesting. And not to sort of consider the notion of it being sort of a generic enough for the AU base. So there are options sort of to consider. So the question is, at this point in time, are you both comfortable with the notions of making them more generic and with downstream implications that we need to handle? And if you are not, then there's a totally different conversation altogether.
So without my
I'm in
requesting,
I'm in principle comfortable with that, but I just don't think this is going to get our R1 eRequesting across the line if we try and make these changes now.
Daniel, you were about to say something?
No.
Okay.
I think I was.
But
I was about to say something at the same time as Michael, but it's the same statement. Like, I think I don't disagree with the changes that are being proposed, but the we may not get the desired outcome where we do make adjustments to this code system. We put it in AU base, and then it's not, the TDG doesn't think it's suitable, eRequesting TDG.
So timing-wise, how urgent is this to get it sorted without sort of doing another round of round of decision between the FHIR Work Group and also the eRequesting TDG?
So from my point of view, these code systems are currently in the eRequesting IG. So they are there now and they're being used now. So if we did nothing they would remain there. The concern is that if we get blocked with negative votes in ballot, then we can't move forward and get this into AU base during the ballot cycle.
I just have a query. Are they at FMM1 though?
Good question. I'll just have to double check that last ticket. Was the code system?
Well, I don't think
FMM1.
I'm not sure we've approved it at the FHIR Work Group. So
Yeah, so you are correct. They're not.
so we need to resolve. Yeah.
Yes, we need
Yeah.
One
to
way or
resolve
another.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we
okay,
have
then
to,
stepping a
look
bit, would the work group block these at AFMM1 if the TDG had endorsed them?
With this code set and definitions as they are going forward, is that your question?
Yes.
I hear concerns about the mismatch between the code and also the code display name and also the some of the definitions. So those mismatch concerns definitely needs to be addressed, and it's either a case of making it all sort of through and through specific to eRequest, or making it generic enough so therefore other communication requests can use it as well. So it's sort of a pick of one or the other at this moment in time.
And I'm just
So I think from what I have heard, that the FHIR work group is expressing concerns about the mismatch as they are. Danielle, your hand up.
I think I'm hearing 3 pathways. There stays an eRequesting, and maybe it just stays eRequesting, and there might be ballot comments or otherwise on this, and there might still be ballot comments that say that your concepts really are quite specific and you need to make changes in eRequesting. It doesn't mean that just because it goes forwards in eRequesting, there won't be changes in ballot. So that's possible. It could be submitted to base, or we could in fact and try to deal with that in base now. And I think that I think there will need to be some conceptual changes to put that into base for base's current ballot. And then there's sort of this middle ground of, yes, it goes out into eRequesting now, but that it's proposed that in eRequesting R2 and AU base R7, I think we're up to migrate those to base. And that would also do the changes of the concepts then. So the work to change the concepts would be in the next release, not now. Yes, those changes would be normative. So I think all I'm aware of is kind of those 3 possibilities.
Yeah, I agree.
Brett,
just also
sorry.
Brett, on your comment, it was included in our AFMM1.
Excellent. So yeah, it's just not showing that way
So,
in the build. Yep, that's all.
yeah, no, so they haven't, but haven't been updated to 1 because we're waiting for the FHIR Work Group. But yes, that to me, the options that Danielle.
Oh, sorry. Can I just clarify? So that was in our FHIR Work Group FMM1 approvals?
So it was the eRequesting AFMM1 that we just went through.
The JIRA that we just
Yes,
endorsed.
cool.
Yes.
Excellent. That makes sense. Cool. Excellent.
So
So that's okay. So you can go to ballot.
Yeah,
where
so
they are now.
that is the fallback position, is that it's currently in eRequesting IG. It is AFMM1. So we can go to ballot with that. But the answer is, should we? And if the answer is no, what do we do to resolve the issue?
So it's a question of we fix it now, here and now, or we fix it downstream, as I'm sure that given what I've heard, that there will be better comments on that if it is kept as is. So it's just a matter of sort of weighing up the options, which one is the most acceptable. Given
Can I check
Sure.
with Ruben, who has probably been through this before? Ruben, do you have any comments or suggestions for this?
I liked what you were saying at the beginning. It's better to bring things that are potentially more broadly useful into base sooner and deal with terminology binding, etc. there. But I'm also a bit sensitive to what Michael was saying about what views the TDG may have on this themselves. I guess I would recommend that we find out from them if they have any strong objections to it coming to AU base, and if not, that we bring it in sooner.
Well, they did vote to include it in AU base. It's the
Oh, they did.
was, yeah, I think that it's the thing that we're kind of having a sticking point on is that vote seems to have been predicated on that move to AU base not changing any single thing about it. But the review in AU base is identifying that when you move this content in, there are some things that would need to shift to have definitional clarity.
Then that's the subject of what they have to sign off on, I guess.
So, Michael Wilson, what's your final thoughts on those options?
Don't know. This is a time problem for ballot. So if we had more time, if we had a month, 2 months, whatever, 2 months, we would be able to potentially work through this and back and forth between a couple of meetings, and we don't have the time. I don't know whether a compromise is that we potentially put a new code system in AU base with these changes, but understand that eRequesting may not want to use it and continues with its current code system, but it gives us a path out of using our embedded code system, or we essentially don't do anything in AU base and leave it to eRequesting to work out the next step.
So if you don't do anything at AU base, this still doesn't resolve the problem that your code itself is more generic than one of your display name and also the definitions, though?
Yes.
That will still need to be addressed. Either it's addressed here and now, or it is addressed through better comments.
But it hasn't been erased in a eRequesting TDG. So we have no issue on that. It hasn't been raised in anything in eRequesting. It's being raised in FHIR Work Group. So
so Brett has his hand up, and I have a final thoughts before we have to close this one. Brett?
Yeah, I mean, it's just where are the negative ballots going to happen is like more the question, because it's you know, because I think you'll get negative ballots if it's just staying in eRequesting for various reasons, because I think we are looking to bring broad code systems into AU base at the moment, and it'll also be then the specific terms will then have issues as well for that generic concept. So that's more those will come up if they stay in eRequesting, if the code system stays in eRequesting. But also obviously if it's in AU base, negative ballots can be lodged against that as well, and similarly that it's not representing what you need. So I guess it's just a choice about how we proceed, because like I mean ideally we'd sort this out through reconciliation to land at the right place, but it's just where how much work is done, you know, to get closer to the goal.
So there is an option of putting it to the vote of this group here and now as it is, and the group might accept it, or the group might object it or reject it. And if the group reject it, then Michael, you still have to take it back to the eRequesting TDG to have it resolved.
I think that's a bit difficult. I'm just saying, because I think there's two decisions. Because I think one, and I've not heard from anyone that we wouldn't like to have this code system in base. I think we would. It's it's the specifics to work through on the specific code definitions that seems to be where we're talking about. So
yeah, I agree, and I don't think that anyone is saying that this is not a good one, but we have expression of concerns about the mismatch between the terms, the code, and also the definitions, and one of the displays name, and that's the second issue at the moment.
I mean, the issue for eRequesting is we've either got to bring it in as it is or leave it out. We can't kind of just bring it in and change it with
Yeah,
it
if
because
you
the
bring it in,
it's
there's no guarantee.
yeah.
eRequesting will use it.
Well, there's still no guarantee anyway.
No.
So but it's like also like any at that point it becomes a FHIR Work Group responsibility to maintain it. So it's like then that's where the changes get made. So it as soon as it's inside AU base, it becomes just part of the regular AU base balloting, and everyone can have their 2 cents.
Yeah,
I think the
yeah.
mismatch is in the scope really, because this is scoped to eRequesting, not to AU base.
except it's not really. That's our problem.
It was not really.
The codes
No.
just say urgent. That's our problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
again, just
Yeah.
on the process here though, that eRequesting has identified a need for these codes. It is obviously looking at them for its use case. Is the process here that anytime we're going to introduce a code system, we actually should be referring to the FHIR Work Group to create, and that we should just provide we would like a code system, we would like these things in it, and then it actually gets created through the FHIR Work Group?
For a new code system, I think that's probably the first point of call. Although I think maybe the first point of call is, do we add codes to international? And then the next one is AU base. And then the next level down is your use case spec.
Yeah, but the decision is being made in the FHIR Work Group on that versus in a use case identifying we need these codes for our use case.
But
there's
like
no problem to work out codes and submit them. That's what we've done with international. But
yeah.
I think it's a false expectation to expect that group will accept things with zero change.
So Michael, if you take the first code as an example from the clinical workflow perspective, so if I send eRequest for diagnostic tests, and I mark it urgent. So what I actually mean from my clinical perspective is that I want the test to be done urgently, and I want the results to be given to me urgently as well. All right. So at which point of the workflow is this code set or communication reason urgent is applied to? Is it applied to both, or is it applied just to this?
No, I don't disagree with the comments. Like I completely, it's process. I'm looking at process here.
Right.
That these are approved of from eRequesting TDG. Right, we've accepted them. They've been voted on. We're happy with them. Right, and don't disagree. There are problems with them. Right, completely agree. It hasn't come up through an eRequesting TDG. So we're thinking these might be more commonly used. FHIR Work Group brought up some valid points. So just trying to sort the process out that if anything's going to be code system related, we should refer to the FHIR Work Group so that these sorts of issues can be discussed and are settled on, and then go back, as opposed to us moving forward in the use case TDG, eRequesting TDG, and making some decisions on what we need.
So to close this one off, because I'm really mindful about the time is taking sort of a pass very quickly now, and we have lost sort of much of the time that we gained at the start of the meeting. So we have the option of you sort of putting a motion forward and vote for the code set as is, or an option of you guys to come back.
Yeah, so I don't disagree that there needs to be changes to go in AU base, right? I think there's valid points here that there needs to be changes there. So it's just what we do, how we do that.
But given the time constraints, so we do need to sort of have a decision here and now as to which way to go. So we have the option of, as I said, put it to the motion, put a motion on the table with someone seconding it, and then we vote, and then you take the outcome of the voting back to the eRequesting TDG. Or you guys can consider sort of accepting the recommendation before we go to the vote and then come back. So which one would you like?
I'm trying to think of something that's going to have a positive outcome.
Okay. Well,
Me too.
There's some risk
difficult.
involved. Yeah.
There's risk on all sides, right?
Can we
And I'm
leave
trying to
Michael
think the best
Wilson
for
to think
everyone.
of that while we go to, I think there's one that actually does suit AU base as is. Can we go to the resource tag? I think this one is defined conceptually consistently. So like the code is specific and the display and the definition. And so I think these as a starter set into AU base, I think we could accept them. They don't have the concerns.
Yeah, so this one started out as the task tag resource. So it's to tag the domain resource. And then when we brought it to AU base, it was recommended that we change it to, at the resource level, a resource tag code system. So essentially, but those codes in there are for tagging tasks as either a single request or a group of requests, tasks for a single request or tasks for a group of requests. You'll see them used in these profiles in eRequesting. So we've got that fulfillment task, so that's the single one. And then we've got, I've lost it now, task group. And you'll see the group version of the task used there.
Sorry, point of order. Are we escalating, promoting this one for resolutions at the moment ahead of the other two, which we will come back after this one? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
yes, that's
cool.
right.
Yep. I just want to be clear in terms of points of order. All right, so we are moving on to this one, given that it's an easy one. So therefore, we hope to be able to dispose it quickly, and then we can come back to the other more difficult ones. Oh, good. Thank you.
Yep. So just to summarize what Michael said, that these tags were created in eRequesting for tagging the task resource for a fulfillment task or a fulfillment task group. In discussions for looking to move it to AU base, we think that having a tag code system at the resource level, so we can contain codes here for tagging any resource, noting that these ones have the context of task in them, so they were applicable for tasks, but this code system could be extended to have any types of tags for any types of resource. So being that generic usage for them in AU base. This would be the starter set, given we've got the use case here for eRequesting ones for task, but they're not tied to eRequesting. You can see there's a fulfillment task. There's nothing in that definition that means it can't be used in use cases other than eRequesting.
All right, all good. Do we have a motion on the table?
Yep, so I would like the motion that we accept this code system into AU base for resource tags.
All right, in the interest of time, seconder.
Sure, Ruben.
Thank you. We have a motion or mover, and we have a seconder. We actually lost a couple of people. All right. All right. Brett, please launch the vote. Thank you. All right, voting underway. We have one abstain. We have positive or affirmative, I would assume that the 4 would be plus. Oh, hang on, we now have 5. All right, 5 plus 2. All right, so we have 7 in favor and 1 abstain. Motion carried. Thank you. All right, so that one is done. All right, and okay, so we're back to
Can we jump to the last one?
Sure.
I think it might be a bit more clear cut in one direction.
The task business status.
Business status. So this
Yeah.
has similar issues to the communication request one. If we look at this code system, just wait for Michael to bring it up. Okay, so this one here is business statuses. Again, we created this in eRequesting. And these are for consistency when we're looking at business statuses through the eRequesting workflow. So this has been brought again to review its acceptability more broadly in AU base. Noting that there has been some review of this and there have been some feedback on it, noting that there are some specific context in here. I think, Michael, there has been a few updates, I can't remember now, but we are noticed, we do have some things there about the actors, filler, placer, and then talking about, we've got pathology lab and radiology down the bottom. I think they're probably less contentious given the lab context and acquired being a radiology term. So this one, again, it could either be moved into AU base as is. If we're going to make changes to it, it will have the same problem of needing to go back to eRequesting and see if it's still fit for purpose. eRequesting has endorsed this. It is AFMM 1 now as is. So we would have to go back through and see whether we're still happy with any changes from AU base. So I think this one potentially needs more changes than the other one to go into AU base.
I think we've already taken some feedback from authors on this one. So I think the original definition for say claimed said alternative filler, and I think the recommendation was to change that to a filler system or filler application, and we used word application because system is very overloaded. So I'm not sure if this meets the requirement of the TDG of the working group now, these definitions, or they're still too context specific.
Daniel and Brett, any thoughts?
I think they're still too context specific with the word just preliminary and the definition of preliminary result. I think the definitions are have absolutely been improved based on the feedback that they were a little very eRequesting living inside that IG. And I think that's being cleared up. And I appreciate that. I think there's still the difference with the code seeming generic and the definition being quite specific. I do like this set of concepts. So this is another one that I would be very happy to incorporate into AU base.
Yeah, the thing is that if we the thing, and this is how it would work, is if we accept these as is, they're going to go to ballot and you're going to get changes, right? Because people are going to vote negatively on them. So I don't see the difference. But if we do bring them in, it's just where they get resolved.
Yeah, I think also the issue will be there's no use case in AU base for these. So if you actually look at the terminology page, you won't find a value set for any of this stuff. And so people are going to look at it anyway, no matter what it is, and just say, what is this? And I think the issue is that, of course, it's come down from eRequesting where there is a value set for this stuff. that it's definitely fish out of water, and I just don't understand why it's like that. But anyway,
Yeah, but like the thing to do would then be just add a task profile into AU base and include it as the preferred terminology, but it has to be appropriate, right?
maybe for 7, eh?
Yeah, but that's all we would ever do anyway. So it's yeah, but the thing is like if we like the thing is like I'm just thinking process wise, like, and this is like I could say sure we should accept this, but then it's going to change in ballot, right? So it's going to change one way or another. So yeah, and I think it's more just conceptually like there's some responsibility for work groups to try and harmonize across groups, and for us like this is our harmonization platform is AU-base. And so that's where the shared terminology sets live. And you know, and this is a general, like it's a general set. So we need to eventually it's going to come in here.
I mean, is the alternative though that when there is another use case that's the time it moves? Because it is hard to second guess where else this might be used and how. And it is very hard for eRequesting to look at that as well. Broaden the scope to, well, we have to generalize this because there may
Yeah,
be other places that can be used.
but my mission as FHIR Work Group Chair is to make it visible, so anyone who's implementing task can see it.
So notwithstanding the other codes, my codes, when you talk about image acquisition, the last one, the acquisition does not necessarily limit to images, although it is commonly used in the imaging world. It is not uncommon for, say, for example, pathologists to engage in specimen acquisition, and also interventional radiologists to participate in specimen acquisition. So that alone, I think that the specificities sort of reduce the utility of the value set even at the eRequesting level.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but this hasn't come up in eRequesting in that context, right? So, but yeah, if these discussions were had in eRequesting, we would have them and adjust them, and if it comes up through ballot, we would address it. But yeah, it's about whether these go to AU-base, and like Brett has said, they then become resolved through that, which again, the downstream implications of that then needs to be assessed by eRequesting, and you may end up in a bit of a cyclic.
So we have the
again.
third option, which is the FHIR Work Group sit on it and then sort of like let this go to ballot, and then the eRequesting TDG would have to address it through ballot comments. So that's another option.
Yeah. I mean, I think where we are at the moment, I think my motion would be that these two we leave in eRequesting as is for now, because I don't think we have time to resolve it before ballot.
Yeah.
But we do need an action on how we resolve this procedurally moving forward.
Yeah, the thing is, because like they're going to go to ballot in eRequesting, but then like there's going to be negative. Like my biggest negative ballot is that they shouldn't be in the eRequesting spec, right?
I think we can just maybe put that to a side for now. I think that's in the minutes. You've noted that. I think let's make progress.
Now, given that though, I don't want to paint ourselves in a corner, and this decision we make to keep them in eRequesting means that this will prevent us from being able to publish eRequesting because of procedural process here.
We have to reconcile
so I would like,
anyway. So
but
it's going to happen one way or another.
But if the outcome of this decision to leave it in eRequesting now would mean that we're unable to publish eRequesting through this ballot cycle because of this issue, we need to resolve it now, right? If we're foreseeing a problem which will prevent eRequesting from being published, FHIR Work Group needs to help us resolve it now so that we don't get painted in a corner and can't publish
I think,
because of this issue.
yeah, I think there's been some talk of having an out of cycle AU based ballot if that's necessary to able to support publication. So that is definitely on the cards in terms of like that's another option. So if it does go in, if it does go through in eRequesting, there is potentially a out of cycle ballot for AU base.
So that's what I would like as an outcome, is actually a process that we can follow forward, like on this. We're all noting that something needs to be done, but knowing what we need to do to achieve the outcomes we want and how we can do that, or how we can achieve that, would be an outcome I would like.
Yeah, there's a few timing questions around that stuff too. So it's like, because in reality, your reconciliation is going to take a little while, yeah. So like if AU base went again in March, is that too late? It depends when you want to publish. Yeah.
Well, the target is publishing in January, February.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
but like we can't run an out of cycle ballot in December.
So at the moment, we're saying though, if these don't end up in AU base, eRequesting release won't be able to publish.
Not necessarily. I think we're saying there's a chance of it, that it will attract some negative votes, but that doesn't mean that you don't meet your publication quorum. So it's a highlighted risk, but I don't think it can be definitively stated. I think there's also the means that I talked about on, and I don't know where I sit on this one, of yes, it stays in eRequesting. We can't move the, so if the predication of acceptance of moving these from eRec into AU base is as is, I don't think we can do that. And we don't have time before ballot unless people want to do a bunch of out of cycle meetings, including eRequesting, which is another pathway to come to an agreed shared code system, but we are running very fine against that. So it's not a very practical idea. Then the next one is also then it goes into eRequesting, and a ballot comment is to move it into AU base, and that is marked as we agree, but for the next cycle, and see if that is appropriate, so that they're marked as part of the scope of the AU eRequesting R2, AU base R7.
So from the international experiences that I've been through, when we are at impasse like this, there is an option of calling a joint work group meeting to discuss and resolve it. I wonder whether or not that is something that your group or the eRequesting TDG work group would want to consider, and that's another option. So we have the options of letting it slip sort of like for the FHIR Work Group, that we are sort of like don't make a position on it, and you then take it through to the ballot and then have to address the ballot comments, or you sort of have to address it, and one expedient way of addressing it is to have a joint work group meeting to discuss and see whether or not we can dispose of those two issues.
I'll just point out a practicality issue for that, though. If the proposed changes aren't there, would that, would it be an in principle, like these things might need to shift in AU base, and then that work would have to be done and come back to AU base, and also go through the eRequesting TDG. And I think we're only a couple of weeks away from ballot.
Right.
Yeah, it's a time problem.
It is a time problem.
I mean, I would participate in that, but I think I don't think it's practical.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, I think the only option we have at the moment is to leave it in eRequesting. But I'm very concerned about the risk of this preventing publication of eRequesting, and we need to do something to reduce that risk. And
But,
if that is, to me, that is potentially a FHIR Work Group process of how we could bring this in during or after ballot.
Well, can the
if
risk
that's
be
the outcome.
managed through the ballot cycle and ballot disposition? And if the ballot disposition can resolve these issues, then it wouldn't be necessarily preventing the e-requesting FHIR IG to go into propagation, isn't it?
I would like to propose that we accept these directly into AU base now as is, and we take them to ballot.
Is that a motion?
Is that a motion?
Yes, that's the motion, and yeah, it's so it can be resolved in one cycle because we can reconcile.
I'm just
Oh.
noting we're over time. Is the meeting being extended?
I'm extending it for a couple of minutes to close this one off because I don't want to have this item hanging in the air without coming to a close of some sort. We will close the meeting after this. Thank you, Robin. All right, Brett, are you making a
that's my
motion?
motion. Yeah, that's my motion. We accept communication request reason and task business status code systems as is into AU base.
For the August-September ballot.
Correct, and they will be at FMM1 because that's been agreed.
Okay.
I'm
No,
happy to second that.
no, you can't go AFM. You can't sneak an AFMM one in. I don't think into base.
But didn't we? Well, we've agreed.
Yeah, but that's in a
the
different
content.
spec. We bring it across. It changes. So
Yeah, I agree with Danielle on that one.
All right.
Well, then it can't go to ballot. Then it can't go to ballot. So maybe I'll change my mind.
we've got another
we have to get
meeting.
that in.
We've got another
Yeah.
meeting that this can be assessed, which is just the next week on AFMM1. So accepting
Okay,
them now.
I don't want to
gives
split.
plenty of
Yeah,
time.
I don't want to split the decision because I either want it to be in at FMM1 or we don't take it in. Well, we'll just have a draft version floating around.
But we
And
never.
eRequesting will have theirs. Yeah.
Why wouldn't we, after it's been accepted as is, vote it as draft one, which is just proving the QA of the thing that's been incorporated is appropriate?
And complete. Yeah, I'm happy to do that because I think we can take it to ballot then. Yeah.
So what is the final motion?
Okay, my motion is to accept communication request, reason, and task.
No, not task. Sorry,
Business
yeah,
status.
task
Yeah,
business
task business
status.
status.
Yeah.
Code systems into AU base.
Is that it?
I think I want to say at FMM1 still because there are no errors.
Yeah, so that's what I'm asking. Is that it,
Yes.
or do you still want to qualify by as at
Yes.
FMM1 level?
At FMM1.
Okay. All right. Anyone who want to second this motion?
I'll second that.
All right. Okay, we have a motion on the table. We have a mover. We have a second. Any further discussions, questions, comments?
I guess my
Alright.
comment is I will be voting negative purely about AFMM1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Okay. Yep. I think that's probably expected. All right. But that doesn't need to be minuted. Okay. All right. Brett, can you please launch the vote so that we can close today's meeting? Ooh, I don't think that we are able to carry this one. We have only one affirmative, and then one negative and three
I'm affirmative
abstain.
too. I'm affirmative too,
Oh,
Stephen.
you are affirmative too, so that's two.
Are you counting
So,
Danielle's negative or a voted negative?
Yeah.
Daniel,
I put it in the chat. I'm
Oh,
negative.
in
you
the
put it in the
chat,
chat. You're
Stephen.
negative, so
So
that's
so
two
it's 2-2.
negatives.
2-2.
Yeah, 2-2. So
Yeah.
we are at a
I think
tie.
I think that
Sorry, go ahead, Brett.
I think that leaves us not going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we could
If that-
make another separate motion that doesn't include AFMM 1 in this particular decision and bring AFMM 1 to next meeting.
Yep.
All right. Do you want
All right.
to now
Yeah.
this motion is defeated, so do you want to recast a new motion on Brett?
I would like to recast the same motion, but at draft 0 instead of FMM.
Okay. So we have a new motion on the table. Accept these two value sets to go into AU base, but at FMM 0.
Sorry, are they
second.
value sets or code systems or both?
2 code systems.
Code systems.
Yeah.
only.
Who goes
There's no
Yes.
value sets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michael,
right.
what was that?
I just said there's no value sets
No
associated
value
with this
sets.
code
Okay,
system.
yeah.
They're all
Gotcha.
in eRequesting.
Yeah.
Right,
All
thank
right.
you.
So we have a new motion on the table. Anyone who want to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, Michael Wilson's will be the seconder. All right. In the interest of time, Brett, please the vote again. Okay. We have no negative, 2 abstains, and 3. Is that the 3? So 3 would be plus 1, 2.
Just 2.
All right, plus 2. So that will be 5. Okay,
Yeah.
motion carried.
I think we're
Stephen, sorry,
6.
could you repeat those numbers, please?
Sorry, the numbers.
Yes,
4.
please.
Yeah, 4
4 plus 2.
affirmative. And 2 negative. Sorry, 2 abstains, no negatives.
Oh, we've got plus
Thank
2
you.
there for affirmative, so it should be 6, yeah?
Oh, so yeah, that will be 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 affirmative.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This has been a very interesting discussions. Although we don't get everything that we want sorted, thank you for your participation. A couple of things. So one is that the SP CU would have to be deferred to the next meeting. There is an evoke request out for the deprecations of the APRA items. So can you please sort of like we'll update the meeting minutes to include the. Oh, hang on. No, Brett has sent out an email already. So can you please sort of like follow up on Brett's emails and then sort of do the evoke on that, and then we can come back next time to close it off.
Yeah, Stephen, I think we'll close that on Friday and announce the date.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
So the final thing, next meeting, have we made a decision as to when the next meeting is? Given that the next meeting, the 30th, clashes with the
that's what I was-
CDG meeting.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about actually, because we have a poll and Zulip now.
Oh,
so-
okay. So that one
Yep,
too. Okay,
yep,
cool. Thank
sorry.
you. Ruben,
I don't think
have
you
your-
can wait until Friday, Brett. That only gives people, if it's next Wednesday, only a few days. So can I say,
Okay,
can we close it
let's,
now?
yeah, let's
This
close it now.
afternoon.
I'll close it this afternoon. Yeah, I think it's pretty
Okay.
clear. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. And then we'll send out a notice for the next meeting.
Yep.
A special one. Yep. All right. Thank you very much indeed. Apology for running a bit more than 20 minutes over. but we have very good discussions. Thank you, everyone. I will stop the recording so that we get the